Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Before we dive into today's topic, I want to start by saying a huge thank you to all of you for helping me hit this 10 subscriber milestone. I know 10 subscribers might not seem like much in the grand scheme of YouTube, but for me, it's a significant achievement, and I appreciate each and every one of you for sticking around and supporting the content. So, to celebrate, I thought I'd do something a little different today, a deep dive into my own political views. I know my channel usually keeps things nonpartisan, but since we've hit this milestone, I'm taking a bit of an editorial approach this time to give you an inside look at where I align with Canada's political parties. It's important to note, though, that this video is strictly my personal opinion. I'm not here to push an agenda, just to share how I see things. We'll be covering the Liberal Party, the Conservative Party, the old Progressive Conservative Party, and the NDP, looking at where I find common ground and where I don't. Before you click away, here is the obligatory: if you enjoyed this video or found it interesting, don't forget to like and subscribe, and feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. But that said, I'm really running this channel as a bit of an experiment. I've not found a lot of pure Canadian content on YouTube that focuses on real politics. The vast majority of my videos will be of a more non-partisan nature and explaining how Canadian politics and its systems actually work, especially the more esoteric aspects, and I felt I could help to fill that void. Your subscription, liking, and sharing of my videos will go a long way to letting me know this sort of content is valued on the platform. And I personally, honestly, appreciate every single like, subscription, and share. Thank you. So let's jump right into it. The Liberal Party of Canada. Let's start with the Liberal Party of Canada, a party I've supported in the past, but one where my views have shifted somewhat over the years. I'll be honest. When Chrétien and Paul Martin were leading the party, I was a lot more comfortable supporting them than I am now under Justin Trudeau. Chrétien and Martin struck a balance between fiscal responsibility and progressive social policies that worked for me. They were centrists at heart, and that's where I tend to sit myself. Chrétien and Martin versus Trudeau. Jean Chrétien was a master of political strategy. He understood how to balance the books while still addressing social issues in a way that didn't alienate large swaths of the electorate. Paul Martin, as finance minister and later prime minister, was a fiscal hawk, but he did it in a way that didn't feel like an attack on social progress. They both embodied that centrist pragmatism that made the Liberal Party so appealing to people like me. Now, under Justin Trudeau, things feel different. This isn't to say that I am in complete disagreement with Trudeau on a number of issues, but I certainly feel it's long past his time to go. Trudeau's Liberal Party has leaned more heavily into progressive social policies, which, in some cases, is good. But there's been less of a focus on fiscal responsibility, and I have trouble fully aligning with the direction the party has taken under his leadership. What I will say emphatically is that anyone who disagrees with Trudeau's COVID spending and the belief that any other party, especially in the minority government that Trudeau faced, would do anything differently is kidding themselves. Pre-COVID spending, however, for me, is very difficult to defend. That said, there are still areas where I agree with the Liberal Party today, even if I don't feel as strongly connected to their platform as I did during the Chrétien-Martin years. Social issues. One area where I continue to align with the Liberals is on social issues. The party has a strong track record of championing equality, individual rights, and civil liberties, which is important to me. While I realize that the Freedom Convoy and the enactment of the Emergencies Act has made this controversial under Trudeau, the Liberal Party as a whole has long championed these topics. I plan to save my thoughts on the Freedom Convoy for a 100-subscriber video, unless you all tell me differently. For example, their stance on same-sex marriage and the rights of marginalized communities is something I can fully support. Equality under the law is a fundamental principle that I believe every government should uphold. Their focus on civil liberties, particularly when it comes to ensuring everyone has the same rights and opportunities, is something that resonates with me. No matter what disagreements I have with the current leadership, the Liberal Party's commitment to social justice and equality is something I still respect. Multiculturalism and immigration. Another area where I find common ground with the Liberals is their approach to multiculturalism and immigration. Canada's strength comes from its diversity, and I believe in the importance of creating opportunities for people who come here to build better lives. I agree with the Liberal approach to welcoming refugees and immigrants, as long as the policies are practical and well-managed. Balancing compassion with pragmatism is key here, and the Liberals, in my view, have generally done a good job of that over the years. Climate change. Climate change is another issue where I tend to align with the Liberals, though not without some reservations. I'm not a fan of climate change denial. The science is clear, and it's an issue we have to address. The Liberal Party has made climate action a central part of its platform, which I appreciate. Initiatives like pushing for renewable energy and reducing carbon emissions are steps in the right direction. However, where I diverge from the current Liberal approach is in their tendency to prioritize environmental policies at the expense of traditional industries. Jobs in sectors like oil, gas, and natural resources are critical to many communities. And while I support the move toward greener energy, I think we need a more balanced approach that protects jobs and ensures a just transition for workers in these industries. Capital punishment. Lastly, I'm firmly against capital punishment, and this is another area where the Liberals and I are on the same page. Capital punishment isn't a deterrent. It's incredibly costly, and it often leads to unequal outcomes based on wealth and access to legal resources. Life imprisonment achieves the same goal, protecting society, without resorting to state-sanctioned killing. In my view, justice should be about rehabilitation, not revenge. And the Liberal Party's opposition to the death penalty aligns with that belief. The Conservative Party of Canada, modern. Now, let's talk about the Conservative Party of Canada. My relationship with the Conservative Party is a bit more complicated. I didn't always agree with Stephen Harper, but I will say this. Harper was a hell of a parliamentarian. He understood how to navigate the complexities of Parliament, how to wield power effectively, and how to govern within the system. The Conservative Party under Harper had strong leadership, and while I disagreed with many of his policies, I respected his ability to govern. That's something I feel is missing from today's Conservative Party. Under Pierre Poilievre, I don't see the same level of parliamentary skill or leadership that Harper brought to the table. That said, there are still areas where I can agree with the Conservative Party's policies. Fiscal responsibility. One area where I find common ground with the Conservatives is on fiscal responsibility. I've always believed in responsible budgeting and reducing national debt. Governments need to live within their means while ensuring that essential services are provided. The Conservative Party has consistently emphasized the importance of fiscal prudence, and I agree with them on that front. While I'm not a fan of extreme austerity, I do think we need to be mindful of how we're spending public money. National security and sovereignty. Another area where I agree with the Conservatives is on national security and maintaining Canadian sovereignty. A strong, well-funded defense policy is essential for protecting Canada's interests at home and abroad. Whether it's cybersecurity, border security, or traditional defense measures, I believe that a secure Canada is a stable Canada. The Conservative Party tends to focus more on these issues than the Liberals, and I appreciate their commitment to keeping Canada safe. Balanced environmental policy. On the topic of environmental policy, I have a bit of a mixed view. While I think it's important to address climate change, I also believe we need to balance environmental protection with economic realities. The Conservatives tend to argue for a more measured approach to environmental policies, one that protects jobs in sectors like oil, gas, and mining, while gradually moving toward greener energy. I think that's a reasonable position, and while I might disagree with some of their environmental stances, I understand their emphasis on protecting livelihoods. The old federal Progressive Conservative Party. Now, let's move on to the Progressive Conservative Party. The party that, in my opinion, struck the best balance between fiscal conservatism and social progressivism. Leaders like Joe Clark and Brian Mulroney understood how to navigate Canadian politics in a way that was both pragmatic and forward-thinking. Centrist approach. The centrist approach of the old progressive conservatives is something I really miss in today's political landscape. They were fiscally conservative, yes, but they didn't abandon social progress. They understood that you could be responsible with the public purse while still pushing for policies that promoted equality and fairness. That balance is something I find lacking in both the modern conservative and liberal parties. Respect for Canadian institutions. One of the things I admired most about the Progressive Conservative Party was their deep respect for Canadian institutions. They understood the importance of the rule of law and the constitutional frameworks that keep our country stable. Upholding our legal and political systems is fundamental to good governance, and the Progressive Conservatives were strong advocates for maintaining the integrity of these institutions. Foreign policy. On the foreign policy front, the Progressive Conservatives had a measured approach that I appreciated. They recognized Canada's role as a middle power on the global stage and emphasized diplomacy and peacekeeping over aggressive interventionism. Mulroney's government, for example, was instrumental in helping to end apartheid in South Africa through diplomatic pressure. That kind of thoughtful, principled foreign policy is something I can respect. The NDP, New Democratic Party. Finally, let's talk about the NDP. While I don't typically align with the NDP on most issues, there are areas where I think they offer valuable perspectives. Social equality. The NDP's commitment to social equality is something I can appreciate. They've always pushed for policies that promote fairness, workers' rights, and income equality. While I think some of their policies go a bit too far in terms of redistribution, I respect their dedication to helping marginalized communities and addressing systemic inequality. Their heart is in the right place, even if I don't always agree with their methods. Healthcare and education. When it comes to healthcare and education, the NDP is firmly on the side of expanding access, and that's something I can support. I believe that healthcare should be accessible to all Canadians, and education is a fundamental right that can help people improve their lives. The NDP's focus on universal access to these services is commendable, though I do think we need to be realistic about how we fund such initiatives. Environmental policy. The NDP is also strong on environmental policy, often pushing for more aggressive action on climate change than the Liberals or Conservatives. While I think their approach can sometimes be too aggressive, I respect their commitment to making the environment a top priority. We need to act on climate change, but we also need to ensure that the transition to a greener economy doesn't leave workers behind. Where my views overlap. As you can see, my views don't fit neatly into any one political party. I find common ground across the spectrum, from the social progressivism of the Liberals, to the fiscal responsibility and national security focus of the Conservatives, to the centrist balance of the old progressive Conservatives, and even the social equality focus of the NDP. At the end of the day, I believe in pragmatism, evidence-based policy, and respect for the rule of law. It's not about party loyalty for me, it's about holding our politicians accountable and ensuring they work for the betterment of all Canadians. You'll note that I have left out some of the other parties, such as the Green Party of Canada and the Bloc Québécois. I wanted to focus this video on the main parties across Canada. I plan to dive deeper into the minor parties in a future video. Thanks again for helping me hit this 10 subscriber milestone. I'll see you in the next one.